Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to yet another episode of the BrkThru podcast. Tonight I have with me a very, very popular guest from Bangalore. We have Goos. Welcome to the podcast, my friend. How's it going?
Good, good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
It's been over a year. We've decided that you're going to be in the podcast, and now we're finally here. How's it been, man? How's life?
It's okay. Better late than never, I suppose.
What have you been doing?
Well, getting through another lockdown again. But I'm hoping this is the last one we'll have to survive. Went through COVID once. Don't wish it upon anyone. I know you're
Currently?
recovered something. Yeah, somewhere in the middle of
Midway
that.
through there.
But yeah, I hope this is the fag end of it, and we're able to get back to normal life as we know it sometime soon.
What's the current scene? I don't know, but Pune is on till about 10 o'clock today. That's what I've heard. So till 10 o'clock, the parties are on
Yeah.
legally. And after that,
Mhm.
there's obviously a lot of after parties happening. But what's the scene in Bangalore? What's the current scene in terms of the music vibe right now?
Well, we had a party up until the middle of Jan, and then they had the weekend curfew announced, and then nobody's going to go out on a weekday anyway. So they
Yeah.
said Friday 10 o'clock is the curfew, nothing on Saturday, Sundays. But then every Friday for 2 Fridays on the day, they would pull it back to 8 p.m. So that effectively killed any hope of even having a 2 hour party or something like that. But they lifted that, well, last weekend, the one that just went by. So we're all hoping that from this weekend, I've been seeing some announcements here and there of day parties and brunch parties and parties ending at 10. I might, if I'm lucky, have a gig myself this weekend. Fingers crossed.
Wow.
We'll never know till it actually happens. But yeah, again, like I said, hopefully it's the beginning of better things to come.
Of course. So tell me a bit about your journey. I mean, where did you start? When did you start DJing? What's your
Journey.
backstory?
Good plug there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Your mic is hiding your t-shirt though.
well, yeah, okay. I mean, there's a lot of it everywhere. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't hide from that anymore. But no, I've been a crazy music person. This is a bit of a cliche story, but yeah, it's not different from me. I didn't realize how much of an influence music had on me till pretty late. Looking back at it now, I was actually studying for 10th and 12th exams, listening to Nirvana and stuff like that. I was actually being able to process information better with music in the background. And then through college, whatever, I was hoarding music. I didn't know why. I just liked a lot of it. But the honest truth is, I was too scared to put myself on a stage in front of people to be able to do anything with it. But that itch was always there to figure out what I could do. So somebody handed me a controller at some point, and I paid and bought a version of Tractor, and I used to, goof around at home with my shisha, just figuring out what this thing does. At some point, I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to move this to the next level and at least learn for what it's worth. So I went to the music school, the one that Clement runs in Bangalore
Oh,
now,
wow. Yeah.
solely for the reason that I wanted to get my hands on professional gear, because there was no way I was going to be able to access that personally, or I didn't know friends who had that kind of equipment. So
Mm-hmm.
I went there, signed up for a course, got taught the whole thing, figured out I had a knack for it. I mean, I knew the music, I just didn't have the skill. So that was
Mm-hmm.
never the challenge. Graduated the course. I'm like, okay, it'll be a shame if I paid all this money and I don't even play one gig now to see whether my fears were valid or not to begin with. So I found myself a gig, played that, was a nervous wreck going into that gig, but whatever. Played a set, had fun, got offered to play another one, took that up, played that, and well, it's not stopped since essentially. All the other things that came along are sort of incidental. And then when I realized, okay, I'm jumping into the deep end of things here, then I said, okay, may as well be good at it and try to make myself good at it, and market myself and figure out what I want to play and what my sound is and what my identity is and all those associated things. So it's been what, about 7 8 years professionally of being a DJ, uh, not counting all the other bedroom DJ things and whatever else we'd like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, along the way, journey came along the way. Lots of trips to Amsterdam for ADE, lots of gigs across the country. But yeah, it's opened up a whole new world of things that I didn't know existed, that I didn't think I would be a part of, when I started this whole thing out. So it's been fun, but yeah, who knows what's coming.
Great. So you popularly run this mixtape show called Journey. When did this
Hmm.
start? What is the reason you started that? And you've been doing this for the longest time. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been a fan of radio for the longest time as a format. I grew up listening to the radio,
Hmm.
all kinds of radios. I grew up in the Middle East, and at the time I grew up, there was only radio. There was no question of any other music unless you bought a cassette or your dad had some vinyls or something. Which I was lucky enough to grow in that environment where I had a Pink Floyd vinyl lying around the house, and I could listen to Depeche Mode or Simply Talking. Modern Talking, Simply Red, or any one of those guys. So I was exposed to a lot of that stuff quite early on, but I've always believed in the power of radio generally. And that kind of carried forward even when I moved back to India. In college, what do you do when you want music? You just whatever, turn on the radio and listen to whatever's playing, right? So I was always tuning into podcasts all the time, long before it became popular as a format today, or every other, artist today has a podcast or a show. Before it became a cool marketing thing to do, or if you're an artist, you need a podcast kind of thing. There were all these shows on di.fm, and
Yeah.
transitions from digweed was popular, and there was all those trance shows that were going on. I wasn't so clued into the trance side of things because that never appealed to me as much. But I remember listening to like Roger Sanchez's Release Yourself years and years and years ago, and I still continue to listen to it till today. I think what really caught my attention there was it felt like a radio show. You didn't listen to it on a radio, but it felt like a radio show, and you're still listening to good
Yeah.
music and music that you enjoy. And so the format was really good. What prompted me to get into it was pretty much the fact that I needed to get my ass moving on the fact that I needed to do more than just gigs. Because if I knew very early on that if I just promoted myself on the back of a DJ gig, I would be forgotten the minute that DJ gig was done. Until I reached a point, if I was lucky, that I blew up, that people knew me as a DJ, which was putting all my eggs in one basket, which was a bit risky at that point. When you're early on, you don't know where it's going. The other part of it was I was trying to form an identity for a sound that wasn't so popular at the time, which is now obviously a lot more popular, which is sort of the more deeper, organic, ethnic sound that I play a lot, or rather, the show has come to be known for.
Yeah.
I realize I can't play that at gig because I'm experimenting too much, and that's either going to hit me on my
Yeah. Yeah.
DJ bookings, but also how do I educate an audience now to start learning and liking and educating them about this sound that they've probably not heard before, and if they like it, then there's probably an appetite for it that they have that they didn't know existed. So that was a primary focus of it. So initially it started off being whatever, recordings of gigs that I had, but then I realized, okay, I need to make it more structured, make it more valuable to me as an asset that I can use to sort of promote myself. And so at one point I decided, okay, I'm going to switch it up and structure the show and give it a format where I have a guest on every episode, and I have a different guest on every episode, and I do the first hour and the guest does the second hour. And I invite guests that fit the sound of the show. They're obviously artists that I like, and I probably play their music, or they're great DJs. They don't have to be producers. With the intention of pushing out the music and then evolve it over time as I see the response to it. And it's been about 4 and a bit years now that the show has been running, but I've been lucky enough to get some of the biggest names in the Indian scene who play not the same music, but similar music. So the idea is not to showcase just organic house also. I enjoy deep, I enjoy progressive, I enjoy a bit of melodic techno when it doesn't get too heavy. And more importantly, even though I like techno, I don't play techno, but I enjoy it when it's presented well. But that'll never be a fit for the show. It's not that I don't like the artist or the art form or the music. It's just for this show, it's not going to fit. But yeah, I mean, over the years, I've been very intentional about who I invite, why I'm inviting them, how I plan the calendar for which guest is on which episode in which month at which part of the year. And I have a series of questions that I send out to artists. So I'm able to present when I do the voiceover, talking about the artist to the listeners and let the show grow organically. I haven't put 1 rupee into the show. apart from my time and effort of actually producing it, I don't intend to put any money into it. Not because I
Hmm.
think it's bad, but I think I would not have been able to see the success or the stickiness of the show with its listeners had I gone down that path. And
Of course.
looking back at it now, it's, yeah, I can't imagine planning for these numbers or planning for this reach or planning for being able to host these some of these artists that I've been able to in these many years. So yeah, that's kind of like it's evolved into a beast of its own that has taken a life of its own.
Wow.
But yeah, actually propelled me also as an artist for pushing new
Yeah.
boundaries really.
Yeah. So you mentioned about, your marketing. You didn't go the whole way of sponsoring it and, making sure that,
Mm-hmm.
you're getting it out to the right people
Mm-hmm.
through an inorganic format. How would you promote yourself as an artist? Because I think really interesting piece about, what I want to talk with you is how important marketing yourself as an artist is, because I think learning DJing and learning the skill and all of those things are very doable. I think the internet solves half our shit. Most of the guys are from these schools and they're learning how to do this in a month you can learn how to DJ. The
Yeah,
real challenge is actually getting gigs. So how would a newbie or a guy who's just come in? I think before the recording I told you how I got my first gig. I was pretty lucky at
sure.
getting my
Right.
first gig.
Yeah,
But most of the guys I know right now are probably more talented than me, but then they don't have a real way of how do they promote themselves. I think in
right.
producers, I have a lot of producer friends who are like really really talented. They're really talented, but they don't get their ass out. They don't meet new people. They
For
don't
sure.
want to put themselves, they don't want to sell themselves. They're focusing so
Yeah,
much on the craft that
right.
they forget to sell themselves. You mentioned in one of your Instagram posts saying that you can help people promote themselves, market themselves. I
Mm-hmm.
just want to touch upon that because that's one of the major pain points that most of the artists I know who are just starting in, they're
Yeah,
struggling with that. I also know a couple of artists who are there in the scene for a while and are frustrated and are struggling with the same issue. So if you
right.
could just probably touch upon that.
Sure. So the backstory to that is I have a day job and I've been a marketer for better part of a decade now. And so my
Wow.
marketing knowledge is sort of drawing from that front. And
Okay.
I work in a corporate setup. So I understand the discipline and I understand the metrics and I understand the science behind marketing. Even though there's an art to marketing, there's still a science that makes the art effective, right? And
Of course. Yeah.
for me, the minute I saw the parallel between that and music, it's like, I mean, if you're a DJ and you're on a dance floor, your DJ craft is an art form, but there's still a bit of science you can apply. Like, I mean, easiest example is if you get the women to dance, the guys are going to come onto the dance floor as well, and your dance floor suddenly looks full. Or
Yeah.
you play a vocal track and it's suddenly very crowd friendly. And so there are these whatever hacks or tricks that you can use as a DJ to, and it's practically a science. It's not even an art anymore. Choosing which track works, that's the art, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, that was the immediate sort of connection that I was able to make in my head, saying, okay, I'm doing two things that have very similar patterns here. How can I apply what I know on the marketing side to make it effective on the music side? So long before I actually started doing this, I won't say professionally, but helping as many artists as I do, I was helping people behind the scenes. And it was sort of, under the scope of things of most people's knowledge. I've worked with a lot of people, whether it's festival brands or promoter or event and agency brands, or even just helping out DJ friends, saying, try it this way, try it that way. And I started seeing that they were having success when they started implementing some of the things that I did. And I wasn't doing it with the intention of, earning anything out of it or whatever. It was just generally goodwill. This guy's got talent. He needs a push. What can I do to help him?
Yeah.
For me, the pandemic not presented an opportunity, but I saw a lot of chatter around, artists trying to keep their mental sanity in place. A lot of artists not knowing what to do with so much time, hitting creative blocks. And for me, this was an opportunity to say, okay, maybe you should look inside and see, are you doing everything that you should be doing to push yourself in the best way possible? And that's not limited or confined to your monetary means or to access to people. But have you done everything in your capability to the best of your knowledge with your resources to maximize your opportunity? What came to light for me is a lot of people sort of put marketing in a very bad light, right? And they
Yeah.
put in a bucket where they were like, if you have to do marketing, you're basically selling your soul to the devil, and you're diluting your sort of purity of the art that you're a DJ or a producer for, which I don't endorse completely. Because I mean, if you start a company or you start a business and you're making a product, you're going to need a sales team, and you're going to need a marketing team, and you're going to need an accounting team and an HR team to do their respective jobs for your company to run effectively and the product to work and reach people.
Yeah.
The analogy there that I'm getting at is, as a DJ, let's say, you are the product. The only difference is you're the sales guy selling yourself to the promoter. You're the accounting guy running behind him for the payment, right? You're
Yeah.
the HR guy making sure that your brain's in the right place when you need to perform or get enough sleep or do whatever you need to for your mental sanity. And equally so, you have to market yourself so that you're able to sell yourself. So for me, there's nothing bad about it. It's when you get into the weeds of it when you can start distinguishing what is good, effective marketing and what is bad marketing. Now, I'm not saying as a DJ you have to, put whatever 2 Instagram posts a day and then this is your, formula for success. That's not what
Yeah.
I'm endorsing at all. But what I also realize is a lot of people don't have their own identity clear for themselves. So if you're trying to sell yourself to somebody, if you can't speak about yourself to convince yourself first, how will you convince somebody else? Right? That's like sales 101 or marketing 101.
Yeah.
So in the conversations that I've had with people, it's like, okay, if somebody has to remember you beyond your music, what are those things? And then I get blank stares, and I've had people ask me, but I want them to remember me for my music. But I'm like, if you're a brand, you're so much more than just your product. You're everything
Music.
else that is maybe intangible or things that you don't communicate, explicitly, but because of the way you talk or the words you choose or the way you write or what you put up, that people start forming perceptions about you. You can control that narrative in a way that benefits you for your music and for your gigs and for your bookings. That it all adds up. A lot of people think, okay, I put up a post and I'm going to get this many comments and that's my, metric of success. But that'll never end up translating to, I don't know, a gig booking, for example. You may reach a point where it does, which is great, which is what you wanted to do. But the truth is, whatever, a lot of people who, let's say, follow me know that I might like Formula One. I do some random Q&A things. I like
Yeah.
animals. These are not things that I shy away from talking about. These are not things that I think too much about talking about. It's just an extension of who I am as a person, which is not different to who I am as an artist. I'm still the same human at the end of the day who likes the same thing. So there's no shame in talking about it publicly. Now, how much you want to talk about, how you want to talk about, that's completely up to you, which is what many artists haven't like sort of figured out yet. They think it, I mean, if they look at somebody else's social media and this works for them, if I do the same thing, it should work for me, which sometimes may work, sometimes may not work. But I think what I'm getting to at the crux of it is, if you haven't figured out who you are as an artist, how do you expect other people to know who you are? So yeah, I mean, for a lot of people, it's identifying that first. Once you've got that nailed, then comes all the part of, okay, I need to be at this place to do networking. I need to reach out to this guy and talk to him in this way, or I need to know how I'm going to ask him for a gig. I need to know what sound I'm standing for, and how do you keep reinforcing that message so that people start associating with you with what you want to stand for. Otherwise, you're left at the mercy of a promoter or a club owner that says, "Okay, I want techno today. You're a DJ, come play techno." Then you're pretty
Yeah.
much a human jukebox, right? Which is not what I think most people want to be.
Yeah, plus also the scene in terms of the way promoters are booking artists. I think this is again what you mentioned earlier on one of your Instagram posts. Is I think this is one of the biggest issues. I think it's the easiest way for someone to the promoters, what they do is for them to book a particular artist. It's immediately, there was a time where they used to ask you for your sets or your SoundCloud.
Right?
Do you have
Absolutely.
a set?
Yeah.
And then that's kind of gone. I think, uh, and it's funny that I say this, that there are people who are booking us for gigs, and they've not even seen us perform. I don't know why they're booking us.
Yeah.
It's they've heard from somewhere else or somewhere, but I mean, I'm not big on Instagram. We're not huge on Instagram. But
Right.
then, there are certain DJs who are number one, Bollywood's number one DJ, Bollywood's queen, or
Yep.
Bollywood's king, or whatever. I
Right.
mean, and they're proud of saying that. And
Yep.
they're getting booked like during lockdown, during everything, they're getting booked. So, what's your sense? What's your take on how promoters book their artists? Because most of the artists, they 99% they suck at Instagram as well. So,
Right.
and I think it's a weird matrix. If you're talented, you suck at Instagram. I think
Yeah.
it's safe to
So
say.
I mean, I have some few fairly strong opinions about it, which have ruffled some feathers in the past, but I'll put it out for what it's worth.
Your posts have come floating towards my, when you browse your stories on Instagram. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh shit, what is this? Okay, then everyone's sharing your posts. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So when I put up a few of those that have actually, I don't want to say gone viral, but it's touched a nerve with a lot of people.
Yeah,
That's when I realized this problem is not specific to a certain type of music or a certain type of person within the industry. So it's not just an artist problem or a DJ problem. It extends to being a promoter, it extends to being a label, it extends to being a venue owner, a sponsor, or even a regular promoter. You may not be the biggest promoter in your city or whatever, but
yeah,
it kind of extends. But obviously, there's a lot of people who are feeling the pain, but they're having to either do the same thing that the next guy is doing because they don't know how to do different, or they're still living in the fear that if they stop doing it this way, they're going to take a hit that they're not going to be able
yeah,
to recover from, which is an understandable fear. And I have lived through that to some degree myself as well. Like, as a marketing guy, I can tell you, I can see how social media, as an example, works very favorably for some people, and it's very easy to become, a clone of that and dilute something else in the process.
yeah,
It takes a lot more effort to sort of convince yourself of what you're trying to do and believe it's the right thing and push forward. So if I take certain brand names, there is automatically an association with what they've promoted over many months and years that they've been around. So if you take Crank as a festival, they've got the reputation already of being a boutique niche house and techno festival that stands for good quality, which is they've been doing it for so long now and they're still able to do it today because they've stuck to their guns with what they do. Or there are agencies like I'm managed by Deep Dictionary, say. We're very focused on deep, progressive, melodic house at the most. And it doesn't matter what's happening around us. We are here to do this job. So we're not trying to be everybody. We're not trying to play
yeah,
everything. We're true to that. It'll take longer, for sure. It'll take longer. But when you start out, and if you're young and you're just getting into it and trying to make sense of everything happening around you, it can be very daunting and can be very overwhelming to try and figure out how many things you have to do and how you have to do each of those things. That's a real problem. And I'm not going to like try and make any less of it.
yeah,
I've heard first world some of those problems. But I think, I mean, to answer your question from earlier, for a promoter, again, it comes back to the same basics. If you're going to be a good promoter, then promote effectively. You're not a programmer, you're a promoter, right? As a promoter, you should know who's playing, you should know why you booked him, you should know how you should promote him so that your party goes off well. You're not doing a favor to the artist by booking them. And for everyone who's listening, I have got many requests myself saying, if I book you, will you bring whatever 50 people, 30
guest
people?
list. Yeah,
Right. And I've got this question in the early days, and it's a normal question for people to ask because that they think that's the way the industry should work. My sort of usual retort, which hasn't sat well with very people, is if I am also bringing in 30 people and I'm DJing, then what job are you doing as a promoter? Right? I'm doing your job
yeah,
and I'm doing my job. Why do you get to take the money home? All right. So my usual thing is I can't guarantee any number of people. If you still want to book me, book me. If you can't, then no hard feelings. There's no love lost. I'm happy to play at the next one where you don't need me to bring whatever 30, 50 people.
yeah,
But the thing is, I'm at a point today where I can say, having said that, whatever X many years ago, I'm at a point now where I can get the booking because people know that because I am on the lineup, people will come, right? It may not happen every time. There, of course, going to be bad gigs and there'll be good gigs, but
of course.
you've obviously reached out to me because you have some faith that if I put this guy on the lineup, he should attract a certain type of crowd, a certain number of people, or whatever. So if you're putting in the effort, put it there and trying to get to that point where the people are following you irrespective of where you go and play. Whether you're a promoter, whether you're a artist, it doesn't matter then, right? You've built your own brand for yourself.
I've spoken to a couple of promoters as well. What their take on this is, no one's actually come out and spoken about this openly. See, at the
Mhm.
end of the day, it is a business. For them, it's a business.
Yeah.
But I think there should definitely be a way where they can merge both of them. For me, my biggest challenge is that we're limiting ourselves in terms of goodwill, in terms of charity, however you may call it. We're
Mhm.
limiting our talented artists to opening DJs, and
Yeah.
they're playing an afternoon slot, playing at 2 o'clock under the
Yeah.
sun. There's just a couple of their friends there. The
Sure.
setup is still happening, and while you're playing, that's not going to get you any good meaning. It doesn't matter, and I'm pretty sure you're not even getting paid for those gigs. So I think
Yeah.
that should be a certain sense. I mean, I've played at some gigs where I'm part of a huge lineup, big ass fucking names,
Yeah.
and just because they want some representation of a local scene, we're playing at 6:30, 7 o'clock,
Right.
and I do very few of those unless it's like a friend's gig or whatever. I do very
Mhm.
few of those, but I mean, that's what I feel. I'm like, okay, if I've proved myself and I have that particular name, how am I going to do anything at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, where the setup is still happening right now? How
Yeah.
am I going to add value to your party? I play a certain type of music, promote a certain type of music, and it's not going to make sense. The guy after me is going to play deep house. It's not going to make sense logically,
Yeah. Yep.
so I think that's the change. There are people on the name of, chalo, let me get 2 3 opening act DJs, they'll fill in the place early, and then
Mhm.
we can take it from. I think that should change. I mean, I'm okay to put me between 2 3 good artists, but get me at a decent lineup. I don't want to
Right.
play a 4 o'clock slot, I don't play a 2 o'clock slot. That doesn't make sense in any way. So I think that's where the promoters come in, where they think that, okay, chalo, let me give this guy a slot, but I don't
Mhm.
trust him enough to do a B2B with the headline act.
Right. Right.
And that's the concern that we have. If you're really trusting someone, that's what I'm trying to do at my gigs. I'm taking a bunch of my local boys, and there have been cases where they've opened for us back in the day,
Yeah.
and we want, and they're more talented than us, and they're opening for us. And
Right.
now we've reached a position where, okay, you're the headline right now. I'll get
Mhm.
you your drinks, I'll get you
Yeah.
your food, I'll
Yeah.
get you your water, I'll do all of those things for you. And that's
Right.
what I think is going to change. That's what I'm trying to do. I mean, that's me, and I'm not a businessman. I'm not doing
Right.
this, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you can call it. I'm not making a lot of money out of this, but
Right.
I think, if I had that bandwidth, if I had that production value, I would definitely take that route, because at the end of the day, I would still make more money if I'm getting a very very talented artist, who
Mhm.
charge me not more than 15 20,000 bucks. And if he can,
Right.
if I trust him, he can get me revenue worth 2 lakhs. I think
Yeah.
that's
You're right.
logical. If someone's listening, if you guys have that bandwidth, I mean, this is what I would do. I would charge you even less than what I usually charge. Give me that highlight, give me that spotlight, and promote me as good as you would promote the guy who's already reached there, who's already come to Pune 10 times.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. You promote me equally, and I'm pretty sure you'll make more money off. I think, I mean, from the promoter's point of view, it's, that's the simple line. It's a business. But I think
Yeah.
there should be a couple of days. I run my night on a Wednesday, man. If there's
Uh-huh.
business, do it on Saturday, Sunday. I run my night on a Wednesday. I fill in people
Right.
on a Wednesday.
I mean,
And
there are so many stories from whatever 10, 15 years ago. And I mean,
yeah.
you talk to any of the old guns in the scene today, and they'll tell you when they would have Monday night or Tuesday night residencies at one place that
Yeah,
would
yeah.
pack the place in and make a lot of money. And so there's no reason that can't happen today. I do definitely think that 1 hour set should be, I don't know,
But
criminal. You should go to jail for that or
yeah,
whatever.
man.
At minimum,
Yeah, man.
everyone should get a 2 hour set. And for 6 hours, there should be no more than three DJs. And you get somebody new who's trying to
Yeah.
make a mark, somebody who's, proven his point but not made it big, and then one headliner and, you know, program it well so there's a flow. And so everyone
Um,
gets marketed right. But I also think, I mean, touching on what you mentioned about the business end of it, I feel like not enough artists today understand the business end of things because I think it's not their job to do it. And that's
mhm.
completely untrue and it's completely unfair because the way you play and the way you perform and you make the dance floor live is ultimately going to translate to business for the venue, for the promoter, or whatever. So you can't say you don't have a stake in that game. But I don't see enough people even willing to try and understand that end of it. I mean, I know today, if I get booked to play at some place, I always either call the promoter or if I know the club owner, I call him the next day and say, how did the night go? It's not that
Yeah.
I can change anything, but I want to know Did you do well? Did you do bad? Was there something I could have done differently as an artist? I mean, I can't change the night that happened, but I know that I can do something better the next time if something didn't go well. Or
But I think
equally,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think you know when an artist is playing, when a DJ is playing, especially if it's a commercial night, I think there is a lot of control that an artist has with their music. For example, I mean, I'm just going to dumb it down as much as I can. I
sure,
think many artists come in, they're an opening act or whatever. They come in, they play the top Billboard 100 tracks back to back.
yeah,
They're getting the crowd pumping. It's 8 o'clock. You know,
yeah,
it's 8 o'clock. Why are you playing? Whatever the latest, Mombaton tracks or whatever those
right,
tracks are. Why are you playing those right now? Because 8 o'clock people are just coming in. People need to understand that you've just walked in at 8 o'clock. You can't play. I mean, even if it's a techno night, you can't play a fucking art bat track at 8 o'clock. I've just walked in.
exactly. You took the words out of my mouth there. I mean, I've had opening DJs playing Artbat before me, and I'm like, you're not playing for the time. You're not playing for the fact that I'm the DJ after you. I don't need to be the headliner, but if I'm playing after you, you haven't done your research to study me well enough. So one, you squandered your opportunity of getting the slot. And if somebody asks me for feedback on you as an artist, it's obviously not going to be very good in your favor.
Yeah.
Also comes back to the point you made earlier of not enough people doing their research before giving opportunities to
Yeah, I mean,
artists.
I do this at my gigs. Sometimes I know that when I don't know because we're both of us, me and Chris,
Yeah,
we're playing together. Usually, there is enough time for me to read the crowd. Reading the crowd is
right,
very important.
of course.
There are tracks I play on purpose. I would not say a boring track. I would play
Hmm.
a track with less vocals, more
Yeah,
groovy, so
right,
people get a breather to go to the bar and get another drink.
correct,
I
correct.
don't know
I
if
mean, that's
people do that.
DJing 101, right? It feels like it should be DJing 101.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what people miss out on. It doesn't make sense. I mean, your bartender will look at you and enjoy, but he's not going to get those sales. There will
Correct.
be those tracks. I purposely, some of my closest friends tell me, dude, why do you play this track? You went
Yeah,
commercial on your, I was like, dude, I'm not. How am I commercial?
yeah,
I had to play this one track to get those three people who were sitting enjoying on their table to come
right,
out there. I played that
right.
that track for them. You're already here. You came for my last gig. I'm obviously going to play a couple of tracks which I played last time, which
For
work
sure.
for me. There are these
Yeah.
tracks which are going to work, and there are these
Hmm.
tracks where I don't want them to work. I want
Yeah.
the people to take a breather.
Take a
It
break
doesn't
and
make
go and
sense.
come back. Yeah.
Take a breather. Okay, the vibe's about 10 minutes. It's a bit chill. Let me go. Let me have a smoke and come back. So
Correct.
these things I think people are missing out on. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of these I learned this from Laid Back Luke. So if you guys are listening, if you guys are please check out Laid Back Luke's YouTube. He teaches a
Yeah.
lot
He
of
has a
these things.
wealth of knowledge there.
Yeah, he's got a lot of knowledge in terms of, and Laid Back Luke, the reason we're talking about him, he's a great DJ,
Yeah.
but I can't wait for his set. I can't wait for, if he's playing a 2 hour set, it's too dynamic. There's so much happening. You don't really enjoy it in that sense, you know? So what I was saying is that from Laid Back Luke, I just pick up the things that he's teaching me, which I can use
Yeah.
in my set. And that's how I take it from there, man. I mean, so if you guys are ever searching for some knowledge, check out Laid Back Luke's Instagram. He does some really, really cool stuff. And he, definitely has helped us, learn and study the crowd and read the crowd as well.
Yeah. He's
So
awesome.
what would you suggest for an artist who's focusing on his music, is everything done? How do they get the gigs? If what you're saying is the secondary part
Hmm.
of introspective and all of those things.
Right.
After all of those things done, how does he eventually get those gigs?
For me, it comes down to one question: why should somebody book you? If you can answer that for
Mhm.
yourself, that's basically what you're selling yourself to the promoter or club owner on the back of, right? So it's either your sound, or even if you're going to say, I have this many Instagram followers, there's a good chance you'll pull in a lot of crowd, that's fine. But be upfront and honest, firstly, to yourself about it. And then you can use that as a selling point. But know that it'll only last you so long as whatever Instagram is the cool place to be today. When you have to do all that over
Yeah,
when something new comes along. So I mean, if you've got the music, then great. I mean, if you're a producer, I'm still a firm believer that whatever DJing is a separate art form from producing. But
yeah,
that being said, obviously there's a lot of gig bookings that happen because you've had a great release, or whatever tours are happening today because somebody's had a great release. In India, let's say a lot of people who are getting booked across the country, playing multiple gigs in a city in a month, not necessarily on the back of big releases. It's probably on the back of the fact that they're popular today or have
yeah,
been popular
yeah,
for a while. So For them, it's obviously a combination of things. They might have an agency backing them that's doing some bit of marketing for them. They've got some big ticket bookings or festival slots that they've been able to be a part of. But if you're just starting out, then what's the reason somebody should book you? I mean, especially if you're playing, let's say, in the techno, melodic techno space today, it's like a free for all over there, right? There is no saying who will win and why they won it. So even if you're playing that, it's not to say that you can't be different. But if you can't figure out why you're different, then you have a problem, right? And answering that problem is what is going to help you land the gig, and not the other guy who plays maybe the same artist, maybe even the same set of 10 tunes for 1 hour, right? But why should
Mhm.
you be the guy that plays that 10 tunes in 1 hour and not the other one? So that's what I think a lot of people don't take time to think about, really.
Okay. And coming back to your, what you mentioned earlier with your marketing.
Mhm.
So how can someone come and is it like a program that people can get in touch with you and you can work with them one on one? Is it a particular time duration? Is it a particular? I mean, obviously you mentioned it costs. For example, what is it? What is a session, or I don't know how we call it, a course with you? How much would that cost
Right.
to
So it's not structured simply because I can't give you a checklist of if you do 10 things, you'll be good at marketing. It's not like that. So
Yeah.
what I do is I first have a call with everyone who's you said I need help here. And different people have different objectives that they want to achieve for which they think they need my help. Now, on that 1 hour call, which is a whatever, phone call, Zoom call, whatever it may be, I send out a bunch of 5 questions. And that really gets the artist thinking about, okay, do I know what I want to get if I pay money to me? And do I have the time to be able to actually work on it to make it work for myself as an artist, right? The end game of it is I'm not doing any of the work for the artist. I'm only giving them the tools to think about things in a certain way, coming with some experience that I have working with other artists, agencies, booking agents, whatever it may be, that I can draw analogies on. I can validate some things from the marketing side of things, saying this is a good thing, this is a bad thing, this is the right time for something, this is you're too early for this kind of exercise. And I help them set some goals for themselves against the objectives that they want to achieve to help them monitor their own progress. So if I'm working with an artist, let me again without taking name. I worked with one guy again in Pune. We started work about 3-4 months ago, let's say. Introverted, couldn't talk to people. Even if he wasn't shy to talk to people, but beyond the hi bro, how's it going? He didn't know what to say. Like, he didn't know how to move the
Yeah.
conversation forward. And like, okay, you're never going to get a gig saying those 2 lines, right? So that was one part of the thing that I helped him through. The second part of it is, okay, what sound are you presenting? How are you going to be out there? How do you improve your social media game? No, I didn't tell him what to do. I didn't tell him what to post. I didn't tell him when to post or anything. I just told him, here, these are your tools available. This is the best way you can make use of these tools. How you want to use it is up to you. What you want to say on that platform is up to you. This is how you measure what comes out of the platform. This is what you can take it to mean. Now, whether you're running after a vanity metric like a like or a share for one thing, or you're translating it to a SoundCloud play on, I don't know, you have a podcast, that's a separate thing, right? So,
Hmm. Hmm.
how do you start connecting all these dots that it makes sense for what you are trying to achieve? Um, it's not a short term exercise. So, at minimum, it will take 3 months. I usually start with 3 months. We talk maybe once a week. The once a week is a good frequency because more than me, it sort of allows me to coach the artist to get into that discipline and frequency of getting into the system of what I'm trying to implement or help them implement. Right. Beyond that, the tool can be junk, but you've gotten into the routine of it. So if you put out like if I put up a podcast every 2 weeks, and this is my own metric for myself, I know that if in 2 weeks that episode has not hit 1,000 plays, then I've not done something effectively. Now, this is my metric for
Hmm.
my radio show, which I've built over years with my audience and with my marketing. That's very personal to me. If you try the same thing, doing exactly what I do, I can guarantee you will not see the same results. It may be better, it may be worse, but it will not be the
Yeah.
same, right? So, given your circumstance of things that you're trying to do and what you're trying to showcase and achieve, that plan is kind of tailored around what you want to do. And once you get into it, by usually week 8, week 9, the artists themselves come into these conversations saying, okay, I did this well, I didn't do this well, because they know now what they're looking for. They know now the kind of questions I would have otherwise asked. Beyond that 12-week period, it's really left up to the artist. Now, some of them say, okay, I've achieved this goal that I set out for myself in 3 months. I'm pushing the benchmark to another level, and I still need your help getting to that, from point A to point B, which is at a higher state of reaching and achieving goals. For some people, it is project based. So someone has a big release, they want a big marketing push, and they want to maximize the opportunity that they have. So it can be, where can I give an interview? What does PR mean? How does PR work? What should I do on Instagram? What other ideas are there to generate content? How can I activate my
Yeah.
fan base? So there's no, like I said, there's no checklist of things that I can hand out to people and say, if you do this, and it's not even something that I work with myself. Every
Yeah.
person who comes to me has a different requirement, and it's been a lot of artists, usually DJs, but not necessarily only DJs. There's even um, guitarists and bands and all those kind of things, but the problems are the same. As in, for me, the way I look at it
Yeah.
is, who you're reaching is different, what you're trying to achieve may be different, but how you're going to get there is largely a similar set of solutions that we can, pick and choose which ones will work for you and then try to work on it. But
Yeah.
if that objective is not clear, if someone comes up to me and says, I need to improve my marketing, I can't help you. Like, straight up, then I refuse the work, because if you're not clear what you want to achieve, then how can I help you? So in that sense, it's very personal.
Great. So before we let you go, we're almost down to the end of the podcast. Before we let you go, I usually like my guests get a bit of a, you could say, homework or something to think about, or do their own research, because I feel that's the only way this podcast would make some sense if they can
Mm-hmm.
go back and do some own research. But before we get them, to do that, uh, I would say any 2 or 3 pointers that we would say which could be a good, you could say like a homework or a good starting point before they can eventually get those answers, because not everyone has a clear thought, as probably you and me. But 2 or 3 pointers that if you could ask them to start, like a good initial start, and then they can obviously get in touch with you later and get in touch with me
Yeah,
later.
for sure. My big headline that I keep pushing out is social media is not marketing. So if anyone is still continuing to believe that, then whatever, jump off that bandwagon. I still think, I mean, again, this it could sound brash or rude or opinionated or whatever, but if you're a musician and you have more Instagram followers than SoundCloud followers, then I mean the issue should
There's
be
something
obvious
wrong.
there, right? Yeah, there is a problem. I mean, you're focusing energies on the wrong area, basically. The last thing I would think is, don't get caught up in the rat race, because as much as we want to say art and support the scene and all that fluff talk, at the end of the day, it's a business, and the business has to run like a business for it to be sustainable for everyone involved. So there's no point shitting on the money side of it or the marketing side of it, or having to play those games that are needed. But at the same time, you can learn a thing or two if you look at the corporate industry and you look at, I don't know, as stupid as, look at the number of manufacturing people making what, toothpastes. They're all making the same product, and there are all so many brands, but there's still space on the shelf for all of them, and they're all able to sell themselves when they're not doing the same thing as each other. And so that analogy applies equally to us here. If you're not able to differentiate yourself, then you will get left behind. And yeah, that it's not something I wish upon anyone, but yeah, you got to put in the work before the results show.
Sure. So that was an amazing, particular podcast that we've had. So Goose, in general, I would like, if it's okay, if you could just share where can your audience find you? Where can my audience find you? Is it your Instagram? Is it your email? I'm pretty sure many people have a lot of questions. They'll like to reach out to you. So
For
where can
sure.
my audience find you?
Everything is at goosemusic.com.
goosmusic.com. So you
Yeah.
can obviously get in touch with him there. Get in touch with me on Instagram, on any of the social media platforms. That's where I'm easily available. We'll also try doing a live Instagram whenever possible. So I think that way we can immediately get in touch with the people who have any
Yeah, I
questions. We
mean,
can sort that
I've
out.
done a few Q&As like
I
that.
think,
Those are usually a lot more useful. So if you see a demand for that,
yeah, so
happy
we
to
can.
do one more.
Sure, bro. Thanks a lot, man. This is
Thank you. This was
amazing having you on
awesome.
the
Good fun.
podcast.
This was.
We should see you soon again in the podcast and probably on some other topic next
Whenever
time.
you're ready.
Cheers, bro.
All
Thanks a
right.
lot. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you.